Marisol Jackson stood in front of the tall glass doors of Unity Bank, her hand resting lightly on her mother's back. She felt a mix of nerves and determination swirl inside her. Today was the day ValorPay would meet with Unity Bank's executives. To finalize a $5 billion partnership was the largest deal in ValorPay's history and could lift the young company into a whole new league. As the first black woman to lead a fast-growing fintech firm, Marisol knew how much was at stake not just for her company, but for every woman and person of color who looked at her story and saw hope. Her mother, Gloria Jackson, shifted the bright red wallet in her hand. The wallet was small but sturdy, and Gloria carried it like a treasured piece of the past. Inside was her ID card, which bore her old photograph and a date from long ago. That ID was more than a piece of paper. It was proof of her own struggles and triumphs, of the long path she had walked from her small hometown to this moment. Gloria had been a teacher for 40 years, guiding children through classrooms where resources were thin and expectations even thinner. She taught her students to dream beyond their neighborhood and to believe in their own worth. Now she stood with her daughter, proud and hopeful. Marisol took a deep breath and smiled at her mother. "Ready, Mom?" she asked softly. Gloria nodded, her eyes reflecting both pride and a touch of concern. She had always been Marisol's greatest supporter, cheering at every milestone from Marisol's first-grade spelling bee to her final thesis at university. Now, as a company leader, Marisol leaned on that same strength. The two walked past the reception desk, where the sleek counters and modern chairs gave the lobby a feeling of calm authority. Behind the desk stood a young woman in a crisp uniform, greeting visitors with a polite smile. Marisol stepped forward and handed over her own identification. The receptionist scanned it, then looked up. "Welcome, Ms. Jackson. The boardroom is down the hall to the right." Her voice was polite but distant, and Marisol noticed a slight hesitation when the receptionist glanced at Gloria's red wallet. Still, she nodded and led her mother toward the elevators. The lobby felt quiet, almost hushed, as if the building itself was holding its breath for the meeting ahead. Inside the elevator, Marisol pressed the button for the 10th floor. The doors slid shut, and she felt her heartbeat quicken. She glanced at Gloria, who straightened her shoulders and smoothed her skirt. Gloria's calm presence steadied her. Marisol remembered how her mother had taught her to face challenges with grace. "No matter what happens in there," Gloria whispered, "you remember who you are and why you started this." Marisol nodded, squeezing her mother's hand. The elevator chimed and opened, revealing a long corridor lined with frosted glass. Doors. Marisol led the way to the door marked Boardroom B. She paused for a moment, then pushed it open. Inside, a long polished table stood under bright lights. Chairs were arranged neatly around it, and at the head of the table sat David Harris, the bank manager. His tie was perfectly knotted, and his posture was formal. Next to him were several people in suits, Unity Bank's senior executives. They looked up as Marisol and Gloria entered, and Marisol felt the weight of their eyes. She stepped forward. With her mother by her side, "Good morning," Marisol said, her voice steady. "Thank you for meeting with us today." She gestured toward a seat near the head of the table. Gloria respectfully took a spot at the end of the table, just outside the main circle. Marisol set her red wallet on the table in front of her. It stood out against the dark wood. Like a beacon of warmth and history in the cold corporate setting, David Harris cleared his throat and offered a thin smile. Ms. Jackson," he said, glancing first at Marisol, then at Gloria. "We appreciate you coming in person. Let's begin." His voice sounded polite, but there was a subtle chill beneath it. Marisol nodded and opened her laptop, the screen lighting up with the ValorPay logo and colorful charts that spoke of growth and promise. As Marisol clicked through her slides, she spoke about ValorPay's journey from a small startup in her garage to a company with millions of users around the world. She talked about how their team had built tools to help people send money overseas at low cost, to invest in small businesses, and to support communities underserved by traditional banks. She highlighted how ValorPay's app had already changed lives in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Every statistic she shared carried a story of hope, a mother sending school fees home, a young farmer buying seeds, a small shop owner expanding her inventory. The executives listened, some nodding, others taking notes. Gloria watched with pride, her eyes shining when Marisol described the real-world impact of their work. Halfway through the presentation, though, Marisol noticed that David Harris was growing restless. He tapped his pen on the table and exchanged quick glances with his colleagues. When she finished a slide about market projections, he interrupted. "Impressive numbers," he said. "But I have to point out that your operations there involve a lot of manual processes." "Are you sure you can scale efficiently? Your mother into a meeting like this? It seems more like a photo opportunity than substance." His tone was thinly veiled condescension. Marisol felt a flush rise in her cheeks, but she held her ground. She focused on her screen and explained. The automation tools they planned to roll out next quarter, tools that would cut manual work by half. Then she said gently, "My mother is here because she helped me get to this point. Her support matters to me, and I believe it matters to everyone in this room." David Harris sighed and shifted in his chair. Gloria's hand tightened on her. Red Wallet and Marisol could sense the silent pride her mother felt. The tension in the room eased for a moment as Marisol clicked to the next slide showing Valorpay's financial forecast. She kept her voice calm, informative, every sentence chosen carefully to steer the meeting back to facts and figures. When the presentation ended, Marisol closed her laptop. She looked around the table at faces that were both skeptical and intrigued. Then she turned to her mother, who stood and held out her ID card. "If you need my ID for verification," Gloria said, her voice clear, "I'm happy to provide it." She placed the card on the table next to the red wallet Marisol expected the bank staff to take it respectfully. Instead, David Harris reached forward, picked up the card, glanced at it once, and without warning, dropped it on the floor. The card slid across the wood with a soft clink. Gloria's eyes widened and she bent down to retrieve it. Marisol felt a rush of shock and anger, but forced herself to breathe. She reached out to help her mother, but Gloria shook her head and picked up the card herself, smoothing its edges as if to restore its honor. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then Marisol spoke, her voice firm yet measured. "My mother's ID is not a toy," she said. "It represents her identity, her history, and the struggles she has overcome. I hope we can treat it with the same respect we would treat our own." David Harris looked embarrassed for the first time. The other executives shifted, some avoiding eye contact, others looking at Gloria with renewed respect. Marisol reached down to pick up her mother's wallet. She touched it gently, as if it held the very heart of their family. Gloria straightened. Placing her ID back inside, Marisol felt a surge of connection, mother and daughter, standing side by side against old prejudices. In that moment, the stakes felt even higher. It was more than a business deal now. It was a test of character, a chance to prove that respect and dignity mattered, even in the gleaming boardrooms of big banks. With her red wallet secure, Marisol turned back to the executives. Her voice was calm, but inside she burned with resolve. "If we are to move forward," she said, "we must do so on the basis of mutual respect. Valorpay brings innovation and value to your bank. I hope we can work together in a spirit of fairness and courtesy." As she spoke, she saw nods around the table. The tension eased, replaced by a quiet understanding. Gloria took her seat beside the door, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Marisol closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. The meeting had begun with hope, taken a sharp turn into disrespect, and now teetered on a new balance. She was ready to guide it back to its promise. And so, part one of their story closed, not with victory, but with a challenge faced and a stand taken. Marisol Jackson and her mother watched as the path forward came into focus, one paved not just with numbers, but with dignity and courage. Marisol guided her mother out of the boardroom and into the quiet hallway. Gloria held her red wallet close, her face pale but steady. Marisol felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. She waited until her mother's shoulders relaxed just a little, then she spoke in a low voice. "Are you okay?" Gloria nodded, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I am, she said softly. But I never expected such rudeness. Marisol reached out and squeezed her mother's hand. Thank you for standing with me, she whispered. Your strength helps me stay calm. They moved a few steps down the corridor and paused near a row of tall windows that looked out onto the city below. The morning sun cast a warm glow across the marble floor. Marisol looked at her mother's ID in her hand and remembered the thousands of small acts that had built their family's life. The first dollar Gloria saved for Marisol's college fund. The nights she stayed up grading papers after long days. In the classroom, and the fierce pride in her voice whenever she spoke of her daughter's dreams. Now those memories gave Marisol strength to face the challenge ahead. After a moment, Marisol touched her mother's arm. Let's go back in, she said quietly. Gloria gave a small nod, and together they returned to the boardroom. Inside, the air felt heavier. The table was still set with water glasses and notepads, but the faces around it had changed. Some executives avoided Marisol's eyes. Others whispered to each other. David Harris sat at the head of the table, his posture stiff and defensive. Marisol cleared her throat and offered a polite smile. Shall we continue? She asked. A senior executive, Ms. Reed, looked up and gave a small, encouraging nod. Marisol moved to her laptop and opened the next slide. It showed a detailed timeline for ValorPay's planned rollout of new services across Europe. She began to speak about the millions of potential customers who lacked simple banking options, and how ValorPay's technology could meet their needs. Her voice was calm and measured, but inside she felt a spark of fire. She wanted Unity Bank to see not just the numbers, but the faces behind them. As she spoke, Gloria sat to the side, listening. In silence, Marisol glanced at her mother from time to time and saw a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. She felt a deep responsibility to show her mother and to every person in that room that respect and courtesy were not optional. They were essential. Halfway through the presentation, David Harris raised his hand. It's Jackson, he interrupted. You have good ideas, but I still worry about risk. Banks like ours handle billions of dollars every day. Manual checks, manual oversight. That is how we protect ourselves. His tone was cool, almost dispassionate. Marisol felt her cheeks warm, but she reminded herself to stay calm. I understand. You're concerned, she replied. That is why our next phase will include automated fraud detection, real-time reporting, and enhanced security protocols. We have partnered with top cybersecurity firms to build safeguards into every step of the process. She clicked to the next slide, showed a flowchart of security layers and audit logs. Some of the executives leaned forward, their interest piqued. Ms. Reed jotted notes, and a young analyst to Marisol's left whispered to his colleague. With barely concealed excitement, but David Harris leaned back and crossed his arms. He tapped his pen on the table, a slow, deliberate beat that seemed to echo off the walls. Marisol watched him and took a breath. She knew she had to address the bigger picture, not just the technical details. She advanced to a slide showing ValorPay's social impact report. It featured stories of families lifted out of poverty, of small businesses that had opened there. Doors of students who stayed in school because someone could send money home easily. She spoke in a softer tone now, sharing the personal stories behind the numbers. She described a mother in Kenya who used ValorPay to pay for her daughter's school fees, and a brother in Brazil who funded his sister's dream of opening a bakery. With each anecdote, the room seemed to grow warmer. Gloria smiled proudly, her eyes glistening. She remembered the stories of her own students' children who had little hope until someone believed in them. Her daughter was giving hope to others. The energy in the room shifted. Executives who had looked skeptical now leaned forward, moved by the human side of the business case. Then, just as Marisol began to talk about the projected return on investment, she noticed David Harris stand up. He straightened his tie and cleared his throat. I think we've heard enough, he said. His voice was firm, leaving no room for discussion. The room fell silent. Marisol felt her chest tighten. I'm sorry, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Harris gestured to a door at the back of the room. Our executive committee has decided to take some time to review your proposal in private. We will reconvene in 30 minutes. He sounded final. Some of the other executives muttered assent. Others looked apologetic. Marisol felt a rush of disappointment. She clicked her laptop closed and stood up. Very well, she said softly. She glanced at her mother, who stood beside her, then turned back to the group. Thank you for your time. We will be ready to answer any further questions when you are ready. With that, Marisol picked up her bag and stepped out of the room. Gloria followed her in the hallway. A few executives passed by, their heads bowed in apology. Marisol offered polite nods. She led her mother toward a small waiting area where two leather chairs faced each other. They sat down, and Marisol took her mother's hand. I thought things were going well, she said quietly. Gloria placed her hand on Marisol's cheek. They were going well, she replied, but they need time to think. He gave him facts and heart matters. Marisol forced a small smile and nodded. She opened her bag and took out a bottle of water, offering it to her mother. Let me know if you need anything, she said. Gloria sipped her water and looked around the bright corridor. Polished floor reflected the afternoon light now. Pouring through the windows, she turned to Marisol. Do you think they will come back to the table? She asked. Marisol hesitated, then spoke honestly. I hope so. I believe in this partnership, and I believe that respect will win out. She paused. But if they don't, we will find another path. ValorPay will grow anyway. Was firm. Gloria smiled and squeezed her daughter's hand. That is all we can do. They sat in silence as the minutes passed. Marisol watched people come and go, bank employees on their lunch breaks, executives hurrying to their own meetings, cleaning staff moving quietly down the hall. She thought about the thousands of clients who depended on ValorPay's services. Every day, she thought about her own journey from the garage where she had written the first lines of code to this moment in the tallest bank in the city. She thought about the cost of standing up for dignity and the price of staying silent. She had chosen dignity. After 20 minutes, a door at the end of the hall opened. Marisol straightened in her chair and watched as two executives stepped out. One of them was Ms. Reed. The other was a man Marisol did not recognize. They both looked determined, carrying folders in their hands. They spotted Marisol and Gloria and walked toward them. Marisol rose to her feet. Her mother stood beside her. Ms. Reed gave Marisol a warm smile. Thank you for waiting, she said. We have reviewed your proposal and the implications of today's events. Unity Bank remains interested in a partnership, but we need to address our own internal policies on client treatment and ensure respect at all levels. She paused, then continued. We would like to invite you back into the boardroom to finalize the details, assuming you are willing to continue. Marisol felt a surge of relief and pride. Her mother squeezed her hand. Marisol nodded. We are willing, she said, her voice calm and clear, as they walked back toward the boardroom. Marisol felt a shift in her own confidence. She knew that real work was not over yet, but she also knew that standing up for respect had opened a door. With her mother by her side, she was ready to step through it. And so, part 2 of their story closed on a promise of progress, a chance to finish what they had begun, guided by dignity and resolve. Marisol pushed open the door and stepped into the boardroom, her mother walking beside her. The table looked the same, but the energy had shifted. David Harris sat at one end, his shoulders straighter, his eyes more thoughtful. Around the table, the other executives waited patiently, their papers and laptops ready. Marisol felt her pulse quicken, then steadied herself. Today they would finish what they had started. She set her laptop on the table and clicked it open, revealing the contract draft. Thank you for inviting us back, she began, her voice warm but firm. I appreciate your willingness to move forward. She glanced at Ms. Reed, whose encouraging smile gave her confidence. Marisol turned to Harris. Shall we review the terms? David Harris nodded. Yes, let us proceed, he said. He gestured at the draft. We have updated the document to include our new client care policy. It states that all bank staff must treat clients with respect, regardless of age, background, or identity. We will include mandatory training and a clear reporting system for any incidents. He paused. Is this acceptable? Marisol read the clause. It was precisely what she had requested. She looked at her mother, who nodded ever so slightly. Then she turned back to Harris. "That clause is essential," she replied. "We are happy to see Unity Bank take this step." She tapped her pen on the table, guiding everyone's attention. "Now, about the revenue-sharing model. ValorPay will provide your bank with 5% of transaction fees for the first 2 years, after which we can renegotiate based on volume. In exchange, Unity Bank will offer us preferred access to your clearing network and co-brand our joint services." Harris leaned forward. 5% is generous, he said. "We must confirm that your current systems can handle the projected volume. What assurances can you offer?" Marisol took a deep breath and clicked to a slide displaying performance metrics from their pilot program. "Our European pilot handled 2 million transactions in its first month with 0 downtime. We have scaled our servers and built redundancy across 3 data centers. We can provide real-time dashboards and quarterly audits. Our CTO is ready to testify to these capabilities." He studied the numbers briefly, then nodded. "Very well," he said. "I accept those assurances." He glanced at the other executives. Any objections? No one spoke. They all seemed ready to endorse. Harris tapped a pen, then looked at Marisol. "Let us move to the timeline. We propose a phased rollout over 6 months, starting with online services, then mobile apps, then branch integration. Does that work for you?" Marisol considered. She knew ValorPay's team could move faster, but she also knew it was wise to match the bank's pace. "A 6-month rollout is fine," she said. "We will deliver Phase 1 online services within 8 weeks, then proceed to Phase 2 and 3 at 6-week intervals. We will share weekly progress reports and host monthly calls with your team." Ms. Patel, another executive, raised her hand. "What about customer support?" she asked. "Once we launch, foreign users will need help in different languages and time zones." Marisol smiled. "We already have a multilingual support center in Lisbon with English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese speakers. We will expand to include German and Italian by the time we launch in Europe. Our support will be available 24 hours during launch week, then 16 hours a day thereafter." Patel nodded, satisfied. Harris tapped his pen again, then looked toward Gloria, who had been listening quietly near the door. His gaze was respectful now. "Miss Jackson," he said, "your mother has shown remarkable calm under pressure. We appreciate her presence and her dignity." Gloria offered a small smile and said, "Thank you. I am proud of my daughter. She works hard, and I am honored to stand with her." Her voice was soft, but carried across the room. The executives murmured approval. Marisol felt a warm glow of pride for her mother. She slid her chair closer to the table. "If there are no further questions, shall we sign?" she asked. Harris picked up a pen and handed it to her. She signed first, her hand steady. Then Harris signed, followed by Ms. Reed and the others. When the last signature was in place, Marisol closed the laptop and stood. She offered her hand to Harris. He took it firmly. "Welcome to our partnership," he said. "I look forward to working together." Marisol smiled and nodded. "As do we," she replied. Then she turned to her mother. "Mom, would you do the honor?" Gloria stepped forward and added her signature, not because it was required, but because it symbolized her journey. She handed the pen back to Marisol, who placed it gently on the table. The room seemed to brighten, as if the signing itself lifted a weight. The executives gathered their folders, and a few approached Marisol and Gloria to offer congratulations. Ms. Reed clasped Marisol's hand. "This is a great day for ValorPay and Unity Bank," she said. "Thank you for your leadership." Marisol thanked her and exchanged smiles all around. Afterward, Marisol and Gloria walked out of the boardroom together, side by side. As they passed the receptionist's desk, the young woman greeted them with a genuine smile. Gloria looked at her ID and her wallet, then handed it over. This time, the receptionist took it respectfully, placed it on the counter, and said, "Thank you, ma'am." Gloria nodded, and the receptionist returned the ID with care in the elevator. On the way down, Marisol exhaled and leaned against her mother. "We did it," she said softly. Gloria nodded, her eyes bright. "You did it," she replied. "You stood strong." Marisol reached for her phone and sent a quick message to her team. Deal signed. Celebrations tonight. Then she slipped the phone back into her purse. When they stepped out onto the street, the city felt different, full of promise and possibility. They hailed a cab, and as they rode away, Marisol looked out at the skyline, imagining ValorPay's logo shining on bright screens across the world. She thought of the mothers and fathers who would now have easier access to banking, of children whose futures would be shaped by this technology. She thought of her own mother's courage and how it had guided her through the toughest moments. In that cab, Marisol took her mother's hand. Gloria held her gaze and said, "No matter what happens next, remember this day. You stood up for respect, and you won." Marisol smiled, tears of joy welling up, but she kissed her mother's hand. "I will remember," she promised. They reached their office, where a small celebration awaited: balloons, cake, and the smiling faces of ValorPay's team. Marisol entered, and cheers rang out. She made her way to her desk, and her team gathered around. She thanked them for their hard work and shared the news of the signed contract. The room buzzed with energy as they toasted with sparkling cider. Later that evening, at a quiet dinner table in Marisol's apartment, she and her mother sat down to eat. The red wallet lay on the table between them, a bright reminder of how far they had come. Gloria reached for it, opened it, and took out the ID card. She held it aloft and said, "This little card started it all." Marisol laughed softly. "And this," she said, tapping her phone screen with the signed contract, "will carry us into the future." They shared a meal of simple pasta and fresh bread, talking and laughing about the day's events. The plates cleared. Marisol leaned back and said, "I could not have done this without you." Gloria smiled. "You could," she said firmly, "but I'm glad I was here." They sat in comfortable silence, savoring the moment. As the night deepened, Marisol looked at her mother and felt gratitude beyond words. She had learned that success meant more than numbers. It meant honor, respect, and standing by the people who mattered most. And she knew that, together, they could face any challenge. Part 3 of their story had brought them victory in the boardroom, but the real triumph was the bond between a mother and daughter, a bond that no deal or discount could ever break. Marisol woke early the next morning, sunlight slipping through the curtains of her apartment. She stretched and reached for her phone on the bedside table. A flood of messages awaited her: congratulations from colleagues, news outlets picking up the story, and even a few notes from friends she hadn't heard from in years. She smiled, slid out of bed, and made her way to the kitchen, where the red wallet rested on the counter. Gloria was already there, brewing coffee. The rich aroma filled the small space. She looked up as Marisol entered and offered her a warm mug. Marisol accepted and wrapped her hands around the cup. "Thank you," she said softly. "I needed this." Gloria sat at the table, her ID card beside the wallet. "You did wonderfully yesterday," she said. "Now the real work begins." Marisol nodded, sipping the coffee. She thought about the rollout plan over the next 6 months. The teams in Lisbon, Lagos, and São Paulo preparing to expand support, and the marketing campaigns to introduce ValorPay's co-branded services. Each step felt exciting and daunting. She placed her mug on the table and studied her mother's calm face. "Mom, are you coming to the kickoff meeting with the team today?" she asked. Gloria smiled. "Of course. You said you wanted me there for every milestone." They drove together to ValorPay's office in the city's financial district. The building's lobby was alive with activity, employees greeting each other, the receptionists exchanging cheerful banter, and a giant screen showing headlines about the bank deal. Marisol and Gloria rode the elevator to the 10th floor. The doors opened, a group of ValorPay team members waved enthusiastically. Balloons and a banner reading Phase 1 Kickoff decorated the entrance to the main workspace. Marisol guided her mother through the celebration and into the conference room, where a large table held tablets and printed schedules. She cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice bright. "Today marks the start of our partnership with Unity Bank." Cheers filled the room. Marisol smiled and continued. "Phase 1 goes live in 8 weeks. We need to finalize our technical integration, complete security testing, and train our support staff for the launch week." She glanced at Gloria, who offered an encouraging nod. The team dove into the details, developers outlining API connections, security specialists discussing encryption keys, and support leads mapping out staffing schedules. Gloria listened quietly, impressed by how focused and passionate the team was. She knew many of them had worked long hours to get ValorPay to this point. At one moment, she raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said, her voice gentle. "I have a thought about customer experience." Everyone turned their attention to her. "Some clients may be worried about trying a new banking app," she said. "What if we include a quick tutorial video and a hotline number on the first page that could ease their concerns?" The room fell silent for a beat. Then the support lead, Carlos, nodded. "That's a great idea, Gloria. We can record a short intro video and pin it to the app's home screen." The team agreed, and Gloria's suggestion became part of the plan. After the meeting, Marisol and her mother stepped into the open workspace. Marisol's desk was already decorated with flowers and a small cake. Coworkers greeted her with hugs and pats on the back. One of the developers, Aisha, brought over a prototype of the tutorial video storyboard. "We sketched out a few ideas based on your mom's suggestion," she said, showing Marisol the drawings. Marisol nodded enthusiastically. "This is perfect," she told her. Gloria watched the exchange with pride. Later that afternoon, Marisol met with Unity Bank's integration team over a secure video call. On her screen were David Harris and Ms. Reed, both smiling. "We're pleased with the progress," Reed said. "Everything looks on track for our 8-week goal," Harris added. "And I want to thank you and your mother for bringing this partnership to life." Marisol felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for your support," she replied. "Your team's cooperation has been excellent." After the call, Marisol leaned back in her chair. She looked at Gloria, who stood by the door. "Can I get you anything?" she asked. Gloria shook her head and smiled. "I'll take a walk around the office," she said. "Want to see how everyone is doing." Marisol watched as her mother moved through the rows of desks, greeting staff members and sharing smiles. It struck her how much Gloria's presence lifted spirits. 2 weeks later, the technical team completed the API integration. Marisol gathered everyone for a quick celebration and announced that they would begin end-to-end testing the next day. Developers, testers, and security experts huddled around computers simulating real transactions. Gloria stopped by to observe. She watched as a test transfer from Europe to Africa processed in seconds. "I remember when international transfers took days," she said to one of the testers. He nodded. "Now we can do it in real time and at much lower cost." Gloria's eyes shone. "This will change lives," she said simply. The tester smiled. As phases 1 and 2 progressed, the tutorial video was filmed in the ValorPay studio. Gloria served as the host, guiding viewers through the app's features with warmth and clarity. She spoke in simple words, explaining how to create an account, link a bank card, and send money abroad. Her calm, friendly style felt welcoming, and the final video was ready to upload into the app. When Marisol saw the finished product, she hugged her mother. "You make it look so easy," she said. Gloria laughed. "I hope it helps people feel confident." Testing continued, and at the 6-week mark, mobile app integration was complete. The team celebrated with another small party in the office. Marisol raised a glass of sparkling cider. "To us," she said, "and to the difference we're making." Her team cheered. Gloria joined in the celebration, chatting with each department head and offering words of encouragement. During this time, news reports continued to highlight the success of the partnership. Local newspapers ran stories about ValorPay's innovative services, and industry magazines praised Unity Bank's commitment to diversity and client respect. Marisol's LinkedIn notifications overflowed with endorsements and messages from professionals praising her leadership. She replied to each one, expressing gratitude and sharing credit with her team and with her mother, who had been by her side. Throughout, near the end of Phase 3, when branch integration was set to begin, Marisol and Gloria traveled to the first Unity Bank branch chosen for the pilot. It was located in a busy neighborhood with shops and cafes. Marisol arrived early and found Gloria standing at the bank's front desk, ID in hand. The branch manager, a friendly woman named Mrs. Thompson, greeted them. She took Gloria's ID respectfully and said, "It's an honor to serve you, Ms. Jackson." Gloria smiled, and Marisol felt a swell of pride. Inside the branch, staff, members watched as customers used ValorPay's services on tablets provided by the bank. A middle-aged man paid school fees for his daughter in another country, and a small business owner checked her balance before ordering supplies. Gloria observed quietly, then turned to Marisol. "Look at this," she said. "These people are accessing opportunities they never had before." Marisol nodded, her eyes misty. After the branch visit, Marisol and Gloria returned to the office. The final launch date was only days away. The entire team prepared for the moment when online, mobile, and branch services would all be live. Marisol called a final all-hands meeting. She stood at the front of the room, Gloria by her side. "In 8 weeks, we set out on this journey," Marisol said. "Today we finish it. We have built something that will help millions of people. Send money fast, at low cost, and with respect for their dignity. None of this would have been possible without each of you, and without my mother's wisdom and strength." She gestured to Gloria, who placed her hand on Marisol's arm. Marisol paused, her voice filled with emotion. The room was silent, all eyes on her. Then she smiled and raised her hands. "Let's do this." The team erupted in applause. Cheered, hugged, and high-fived. Gloria laughed with delight. That night, as the clock struck midnight, the ValorPay system and Unity Bank services switched on together. Marisol and Gloria sat at computers in the office, watching live transaction. Numbers climb. They exchanged digital toast pings from the app showing successful transfers. Hundreds rolled in, then thousands. Each ping was a life touched, a family reunited, a business empowered, a student's tuition secured. Marisol leaned back and exhaled. She looked at her mother, whose eyes were bright with pride. "We did it," she whispered. Gloria reached across the desk and squeezed Marisol's hand. "Yes, we did," she replied. In that moment, Marisol understood that the true victory was not the deal or the numbers. It was the respect they had demanded and earned, the dignity they had upheld, and the lives they would continue to change. And as the transactions continued to flow, Marisol knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one guided by courage, honor, and the unwavering support of those who believed. In her part 4 of their story, closed on a promise realized, in a future shining bright, Marisol could hardly sleep that night. Even after the hum of servers calmed and the last support tickets closed, her mind raced with excitement and hope. She lay awake in her bedroom, the city lights casting soft patterns on the walls. Gloria slept peacefully, her red wallet tucked safely on the nightstand. Marisol closed her eyes, feeling gratitude for her mother's steady presence through every twist and turn of their journey. Morning came with bright sunshine. Marisol tiptoed into the kitchen, where Gloria was already brewing tea. The aroma of jasmine floated in the air. Marisol poured 2 cups, carrying them to the small table by the window. The view showed people hurrying to work, taxis weaving through traffic, and the river glinting in the distance. Everything looked full of promise. They sipped their tea in comfortable silence until Gloria spoke. "You did well," she said softly. "You stood for respect, and you showed the world what matters." Marisol smiled. "I couldn't have done it alone," she replied. "Taught me to stand tall." Gloria reached across the table and grasped her daughter's hand. "And you taught me that courage can change more than one life." They sat together, knowing this moment was both an ending and a beginning. A few days later, ValorPay hosted a community event in the city park. Marisol and Gloria arrived hand in hand. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, marked with ValorPay's logo and the words "Together we rise." Food trucks served treats from around the world, spicy samosas, sweet pastries, fresh fruit bowls. Tables under white tents held tablets showing the app in action. People gathered to learn how to send money home, pay bills, or start small businesses. Volunteers guided them patiently, offering help in many languages. Marisol took the stage, feeling a joyful flutter in her chest. She welcomed everyone speaking. In clear, friendly words, she told them the story of her mother's red wallet, of the day at Unity Bank when respect was denied and then reclaimed. She described how that moment changed her company, how it became the spark that illuminated a new path forward. The crowd listened, nodding and smiling. Some wiped away tears. When she finished, applause erupted, and people cheered for both Marisol and Gloria. After the speech, Marisol mingled with guests. A young woman in a bright headscarf thanked her, saying the app had helped her send money to her grandmother in another country. A small business owner from a nearby neighborhood said ValorPay's low fees meant he could finally make a decent profit on each sale. Marisol paused by a table where children drew pictures of their dreams. Some drew airplanes, others schools, a few even sketched rockets. She knelt and asked a little boy about his drawing. "I want to build a school," he said, "but I need money to pay the builders." Marisol smiled. "One day you will," she told him. "We'll help you." The boy beamed, and Gloria watched with pride. That afternoon, as the sun began to lower in the sky, Marisol and Gloria walked along a tree-lined path. Leaves whispered in the breeze, and the laughter of families echoed nearby. Gloria stopped and touched a bench, remembering the many times she had sat on worn seats in her old neighborhood, grading papers under a street lamp. She turned to Marisol. "Look how far we've come," she said quietly. "You turned a hurtful moment into something that helps thousands." Marisol squeezed her mother's arm. "I learned from the best," she replied. Followed, news outlets picked up the story of ValorPay's success and Unity Bank's new client care policy. Journalists interviewed customers whose lives had changed. A magazine ran a cover story titled "Red Wallet." Big Heart told how one ID card sparked a movement of respect in finance. Marisol's inbox overflowed with messages from women in tech, from mentors offering support, and even from children, writing to say they now dreamed of careers in banking or technology. Each message filled her with joy and responsibility. At ValorPay's headquarters, the walls displayed photos from the park event, smiling faces, children's drawings, and a proud shot of Marisol and Gloria holding hands. Every morning team members paused to look at the pictures as they arrived for work. The red wallet rested in a glass case in the lobby with a small plaque that read, "Dignity First." Visitors often paused to read the story, and some gently touched the case, as if feeling the power of that simple object. One afternoon, Marisol received a message from Unity Bank's CEO, inviting her to speak at their annual leadership summit. She looked at Gloria and said, "They want us to share our story with their leaders." Gloria's eyes lit up. "That is wonderful," she said. "Let's go." A few weeks later, they traveled to a grand conference hall filled with rows of plush chairs and a stage with bright lights. Bank leaders from around the world gathered to hear about diversity, inclusion, and the business case for respect. Marisol and Gloria took the stage together. The audience fell silent as they told their tale. The insult in the lobby, the stand in the boardroom, and the triumph that followed. When they finished, the applause was thunderous and lasted several minutes. Many executives came forward afterward to shake hands, some with tears in their eyes. On the flight home, Marisol gazed out the window at the clouds below. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. In it, she wrote down new ideas, programs to train bank staff in other regions, scholarships for young women in fintech, partnerships with schools to teach digital finance. She looked at her mother and said, "I want to do more." Gloria smiled, proud and happy. "Then let's do it," she said. Back in the office, they launched the Dignity Initiative, a plan to share their client care policy with other banks, to create open-source training materials, and to fund community workshops. They hired an outreach team and partnered with nonprofit groups. Within months, several other banks adopted similar policies, and more people felt seen and respected when managing their money. ValorPay's growth continued, but what mattered most to Marisol was knowing that the world was changing for the better. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Marisol and Gloria sat on the balcony of their apartment. The city lights twinkled like stars fallen to earth. They held hands in silence, feeling a deep bond. Then Gloria spoke. "You have built more than a company," she said. "You have built a movement." Marisol looked at her mother, her heart full. "Learn from you," she whispered. "Your courage, your kindness, they are the real foundation." As the night wore on, they returned inside. On a shelf stood a framed photo of the day. They signed the deal, both smiling brightly, pens in hand. That photo captured a moment of victory, but Marisol knew the journey was ongoing. She thought of the children in the park, of the customers whose lives would improve, of the many doors yet to open. And she thought of her mother's red wallet, once tossed on the floor, now a symbol of honor. Before bed, Marisol placed that photo beside the wallet on the nightstand. She whispered a silent promise to keep fighting for respect, to lift others up, and to honor the moment that had changed everything. Then she closed her eyes, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring, knowing that with dignity in their hearts and courage as their guide, they could face any challenge together. And so, the story of Marisol Jackson and her mother came full circle. From a single act of disrespect to a legacy of hope, proving that even the smallest object, a red wallet, a humble ID, can carry the greatest power of all, the power of respect.